Hey guys, sorry if this video is maybe slightly rushed. I already did a video this morning, but just an hour or two ago, as of the time of filming, I don't know when I'll get this out to you guys, we finally got Cyberpunk actual benchmarks. Now, the only one I've been able to find so far is from Tom's Hardware. What's playing behind me right now? Well, just a video about the game. I'll link it in the description. The game looks awesome, right? Beautiful, and it's coming out soon. And I've reported previously on the recommended system requirements for the game. But let's take a look at Tom's Hardware, because they have the preview version of the game. And so this is running with, okay, this has the DRM, this has Denuvo, and there also isn't the newest graphics driver. So when the game comes out, there should be a day one graphics driver update, at least for NVIDIA. And this doesn't have that yet. But this looks, how should I put it? Challenging, okay, guys? So let's just jump in here to some graphs and talk about them. Okay, guys, 1080p medium. Can your card handle it? Okay, well, like, I have a 2070. I wish they'd tested a 2070, and I'm playing at 1440p ultra wide, so I'm not gonna get the exact information I'm looking for here. But I know some people tuning into this video might not be the kind of people who follow all the graphics cards updates. You're just excited about the game. You wanna know if your computer can run it, how well it's gonna do. So you're gonna need to find how your card compares to these cards. Also keep in mind that this is using a high-end CPU, so you would also need a decent CPU, but these reviews are mostly focusing on the GPU. Anyway, so look at reviews of your graphics card and like how it performs versus the cards in this list to get a rough idea of where it will fall in this outline. Anyway, so 1080p medium settings. In other words, can I play the game at 1080p and have it look reasonably okay? Well, the good news is, you know, a 6800 XT, a 3090, 3080, all of that can do it pretty well. And it's also neat to see the 6800 XT actually a bit ahead of the 3090. Now, we've seen this before where the AMD cards do better at lower resolutions relative to NVIDIA. And then as you step it up to 4K, the NVIDIA cards pull ahead. I think that's due to the design of the NVIDIA GPUs, at least we're talking the Ampere series, where they're better able to fully load all of their cores at those higher resolutions. Anyway, but 1080p medium. Yes, if you just bought one of the brand new awesome cards, including a 3060 Ti, you're gonna be at least able to do that, right, with high frame rates. If you're sitting at a 1060, I know there's a lot of people out there with a 1060 right now. The 1060 was playing the game at 1080p medium, 30 frames per second minimum, which means that you could do a locked 30 frames per second with the 1060. So when I put out my video talking about like the system requirements, I was thinking, I wonder if those are recommending 60 frames per second or 30 frames per second. I put up a follow-up video saying I don't think that it's probably targeting a locked 60. Here's some evidence of that, because it's 1060, 30 frames per second lock here. Now, 5600 XT, looks like that'll be getting you your 60 frames per second. If you're sitting at a 2060 on a 1080p monitor, again, it's looking like 60 frames per second is not gonna be an issue for you. Now notice here that they threw in a 7700K. What is this? This is a processor. So their normal testing was done with, I think, like a 9700K, so that's a better processor. So the reason this is in here, and it's only doing it on one, is to check if you don't have a newer CPU. Is it gonna bottleneck you, especially if you're on something like a 3090? And that does appear to be the case. If you drop it down to 7700K, you are dropping down here to where you will see some minimums below 60 frames per second, and you're losing a lot off the top end. That's really, really interesting. Now again, that's at 1080p, where a 3090, again, at the lower resolutions and a higher end graphics card, you're more likely to run into CPU bottlenecks. So as we step up the resolutions, where most people with a 3090, is there anybody with, tell me right now in the comments, do you have a 3090 and you're playing at 1080p? I'd be really curious, okay? Anyway, that was 1080p medium. All right, let's jump back in here and look at some of the other information they have. So here's 1440p medium. Okay, 1440p medium. By the way, if you're wondering, does this have ray tracing yet? No, this is not even using ray tracing. And as I've reported previously, and I believe this article confirmed, the AMD cards aren't going to support ray tracing at launch, so they're not going to be in those tests. It will get updated later, though, to support ray tracing on the AMD cards. All right, anyway, so 1440p medium settings, and this is scary to me because, like I said, I have a 2070, and I'm playing at 1440p ultra wide, although I could letterbox it in. So, a 2060, is it getting you 60 frames per second? It is not, okay? A 2060 is not getting you 60 frames per second. Now, I have a 2070 non-super, so I'm gonna do a little better than that, but it's looking to me like I might be letterboxing in here, or using DLSS, which we'll get to later. DLSS could be a big thing here. That might save me. I usually turn it off, but if I like frame rates, and I might need some need some more frames here. Anyway, so 5600 XT, if you're sitting on that, I would have loved to see a 5700 XT on their test. It's not here though. Anyway, 5600 XT is falling at the 42 frames average and the 34 frames minimum. 1060, if you're wondering, can your 1060 handle 1440p medium here? This looks like an emphatic no, okay? Now, the 3090 here is handling it above, above 60 even on the minimums. Your 6800 XT is still doing great here. So by the way, I'm encouraged to see the 6800 XT doing well here relative to the 3080 and the 3090. So it's looking like, unless you really want to have ray tracing at launch, the 6800 is doing great, right? Again, you still are seeing a bit of a CPU bottleneck if you drop down to like a 7700K, because we do see the 3090 fall to by a decent chunk on its performance here. So it does want a good CPU if you want to stay above 60 frames per second minimums, and again, not even and again, not bottlenecking your high ends there. Okay, so that's very interesting information. Again, if you jumped in on a 3060 Ti, and again, they don't have a 3070 in here either, right? But we know that the 3060 Ti falls in, what was it, about 10% less performance than the 3070. So it's like 90% of the performance of a 3070 is another way you could phrase that. So the 3060 Ti is maintaining averages above 60 at 1440p medium, and is, not not even dropping the lows really below 60 as well. So that's really good to see if you just bought a 3060 Ti for this game, if 1440p medium is roughly where you were targeting. But man, this looks rough. These are medium, guys, medium. Whew, is this the new, the new Crisis? Can your game run it? And hey, my heater finally turned off. I just started recording this video very quickly in limited break time here, guys. Anyway, okay. 4K medium. Where are we at with 4K medium? So can you run the game at 4K? Even a 3090 is going to be struggling to run this game at medium settings at 4K and maintain a 60 frames per second. Again, without DLSS. Kicking on DLSS is going to be the savior here for the 20 series and up NVIDIA cards. And I know, argue all you want about what that does to the graphics, but if it has a minor performance drop on the graphics and a huge improvement to the performance, might be worth it there, guys. Can the 6800 XT do it? Well, I mean, I would consider this playable. 43.7 lows, 52.2 medium. I would consider that playable. I would prefer to have a locked 60, and I don't game at 4K partially for this reason. It's really hard to do, right? Your 3060 Ti, again, this is not really something you should be using as a 4K card, in my opinion, and it's definitely showing it here. Although if you like 30 frames per second, console gaming experience, go ahead and lock that lock that in. And yeah, these lower end cards have no chance, no chance. Okay, what do we got here? So now let's take a quick look at Ultra. And what do we have at Ultra here, guys? So 1080p Ultra. Can your card handle that? Your 1060 cannot. Your 2060 would be playable, but it's struggling. It's not going to be a 60 frames per second smooth ride at 1080p Ultra. Interesting. That's a 2060, guys. So Ultra settings here are rough. The 6800 XT, like we said, remember at 1080p medium, the 6800 XT was beating the 3090. At 1080p Ultra, it's actually fallen behind the 3090. So very interesting, but again, that's something we've seen in a lot of games. Now it's fallen behind, but not by much. So this is, again, your 6800 XT is almost 3090 levels of performance as long as you're not worried about ray tracing or DLSS. Again, your 3060 Ti can definitely handle this game if you're looking for an above 60 frames per second experience at 1080p. So great choice there. Now, what if we kick on ray tracing medium? Guys, this scares me, okay? Ray tracing medium, now we don't have DLSS yet, right? Ray tracing medium takes the 3090 at 1080p ultra with ray tracing medium turned on down to 75 frame per second average, which is still pretty good, but this is a 3090 at 1080p. I'm thinking about what this means for ray tracing when it does get optimized for the AMD cards. That's what I'm thinking ahead to. And if they don't have the DLSS competitor by then, I'm just saying, I don't think ray tracing is going to be an amazing experience here for a lot of people. All right, guys. So ray tracing ultra. Can the 3090 handle ray tracing ultra at 1080p ultra? Barely 60 frames per second average. Barely 60 frames per second average. Anyway, you guys can read the details here as we go. Let's jump on up to what about DLSS? What if we kick on some DLSS? So DLSS, 1080p Ultra with DLSS, quality, and again, there's quality, balanced, and performance settings when it comes to your DLSS. I believe that's what the Q, B, and P here are, right? Anyway, so you can take a look here and see what DLSS does. I don't want this video to drag on and on and on, and I'm going to link this article for you guys. I don't want to steal every graph that they have. I don't want you to, say I'm absolutely stealing their content. They give impression on the games and things like that. I'm just as excited as you guys probably are about this game, and I was very interested to see what those performance numbers looked like. Please take a look at this article, and if this means that the embargo is lifted, this is just the only benchmarks I can find published right now as of the time I'm filming. By the time this gets out, maybe there's going to be more available that you can Google search for. Take a look. I'm really interested to see how this game ends up performing for me. Am I going to have to buy myself a new GPU? We'll see. So dig into those results. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. I hope this video was useful and interesting for you, and I hope you guys have an excellent day.